Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Film and TV podcast. I'm Kristin Mothersbaugh, your host, and today I have a very special, amazing guest, Jill Tenney, one of my closest friends, and a talented creator and actor, and really funny. So she showed me this film that we're going to cover today, and it has been just a wonderful experience. Um, Getting to know Jill's humor and making our web series together. So, without further ado, here is Jill Tenney.
Yeah. Good evening.
How are you, Jill?
I'm okay. How about you?
Good. Thank you for joining me. So our movie is What We Do in the Shadows, which just to give like a little background for the people listening or watching this, it was a 2014 New Zealand mockumentary horror comedy film written and directed by Jemaine, Clement, and Taika Waititi. I don't know if I'm saying that right, hopefully. And then it actually incited the whole like franchise in the show that now exists. So it
That I haven't seen. I'm such a purist. I've only seen the film. I just rewatched it yesterday. So,
Oh yeah, I just rewatched it too, but I haven't seen the show still. So
and people say the show is better than the film. So,
oh, they did. Oh, we'll have to watch it, Jill.
I don't know. It's hard to commit to a series,
Yeah, yeah.
especially when Jemaine isn't in it. So,
Okay, yeah. Anywho, basically it did pretty well for itself, and now it has a following, and it really like spurred their careers. So, Jill, what do you like about What We Do in the Shadows?
I mean, it's just funny. The visual humor. Um, they just, they fill every moment with a laugh. It could be a joke, and everybody was so good at improv. He knew when to let people just kind of be themselves and, just be funny and come up with jokes. But then the cutaways to the visuals, like photographs or illustrations in old books. Every time you hear the beast, it's the same medieval illustration of the bell toll. So that really it definitely inspired me for the kind of visual, some of the visual I used in Mercredi, and I know there are other inspirations for Mercredi, but I kind of they're just so long buried. And I know there was something that I saw not too long ago. I was like, oh yeah, that was an inspiration too. But it's just so in the background for me. It's so well known to me. I can't even think what it was.
I think I know it's the Best in Show film with the dogs, right?
Well, Best in Show is another mockumentary. It's a really good entry in the mockumentary, canon. And so yeah, I just like the mockumentary format. Yeah, it's so good because it's just you know such a perfect setting for satire, you know
Yeah.
because you're supposedly playing real people, but you get to pick a character that so somebody and like, yeah, I'm going to illustrate that character in this setting. So yeah.
Yeah. And fully commit in these like outlandish circumstances, right?
Hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that was not the first time I knew Jemaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords. That was the first thing I knew him from. But Taika Waititi, that was my first big exposure to him. I know they did at least one film before that called Eagle versus Shark, where Taika Waititi, I mean, he directed that, but he was barely in it. I don't think he had any lines in it. I think he was in a flashback, but it was mostly Jemaine Clement as the main character in that one. But yeah. It's an interesting one.
Yeah. And for anyone that is watching or listening and doesn't know, Jill, do you want to talk about your web series inspired by what we do in the shadows a little bit?
So yeah, it's funny. I mean, I got to start with that class where we met. It's this like multi-hyphenate class in a theater in West Hollywood, led by Ariane Price, called Women in Hollywood. And it was just, it was about writing, and it's basically a writing class for performers. And another classmate of ours had this sketch that I performed with her, and that was kind of the germ for an idea about a movie. It would be a beauty pageant for unconventional beauty contestants, with the ultimate joke being like, so we'd have people who were not your typical beauty contestant because maybe they had some condition or um, some abnormality, but the joke was going to be that the biggest like condition of all was being old, like over 28 or something. So we were trying to think of these different kind of oddball characters. So I thought there could be this uh, this meth model, like, stereotypical model. She was like a cocaine addict, like that whole stereotype, or like heroin chic, something like that. It's like, what if it was meth? And um, some people that I was collaborating with are like, you really want to do that? You really want to do a meth? How about like a death model? Maybe she's goth. Like, okay. So I was kind of like mulling over this character idea, and I mean, and I would always think like, who would I cast in this? And it would be like one of my friends, of course, because I know a fair amount of actors. And when I thought of you to play Mercredi, like I came up with like, she'd be like Wednesday. Well, like how do I kind of make that different? Oh, color Mercredi. And when I thought of you for that, I was like, Kristin, yeah. And then like it all kind of like solidified in my mind, like what she would be. And I also found an actual web page of a guy who is a professional corpse. And I also learned of something called Cotard syndrome, where people, genuinely think I mean, it's not funny at all. People, they're so severely depressed, they think they're like dead, which is, it's incredibly sad. But I thought Mercredi Cotard professional corpse. Yeah, that's perfect. So that's the idea. And then I realized like this idea of this a kind of ensemble cast. I was like, I don't know. I mean, I have so many ideas just for this one character. Like her whole thing is she plays dead, like playing dead. That would be this whole metaphor for just kind of passivity and apathy. The big metaphor there is like apathy, laziness, cynicism, disconnect, um, and somewhat of a send up of, I mean, disconnect in that, that we turn to substances, anything that kind of just, removes the pain of everyday existence and makes everyday existence comfy and easy, and numbs you to everyday existence. So it's basically you want to live life like a corpse. Like, well, this is not that extreme. I mean, we're all trying to do this, really. So if you want to just use my products that can numb you and make you feel like, have you in this pleasant state of limbo all the time, I think maybe you'd like to play dead too. So that's kind of the whole motif with Mercredi, and kind of going from, well, she's goth to like, no, literally, no, she puts goth to shame.
Thank you for sharing. And I'm just so honored to play Mercredi. Like seriously, I truly am. Love.
And when we shot that first little short we did, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I was hoping you would look and sound like. Yes, that's Mercredi. So
Yeah,
yeah.
fun. And she is kind of similar to some of the characters in what we do in the shadows, which is funny, right? Like,
Yeah, and the format, it's like I'd probably seen what we do in the shadows, and I thought, well, I thought of like I was kind of like joking around with my brother, what if you did a little short about a model who, and like, take an interview of a model and just substitute everything she says with, something like with death. And like, oh yeah, I've been offered film roles, and so she gets to play a zombie. Um, but yeah, it's a mockumentary format where she's being interviewed by somebody and followed around, and because they're doing a little expose on the world of playing dead, this little counterculture that she's got going. And I think she's like could be she's a cult leader, potentially a cult leader. I
mhm.
think good can happen.
Yeah,
She could amass enough followers.
she's pretty savvy. I think so.
Hmm. A
Hmm.
lot more going on there, a lot more electrical activity in that brain than she lets on.
Exactly. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
not all sweet and innocent, that's for sure.
I think the episode where I really kind of went to town with the sort of visual style that they use with what we do in the shadows, with the cutaways to photos and drawings to do the visual gags. That's I do that in a, a few of them. In fact, I think I do that in all the episodes, but the one with Laura Purcell playing your mom, and she's looking at the photo album, and it's just really silly, like bad photoshops where I took a photo of Laura and a photo of you, and I put you in there, and just the juxtaposition of the two of you. And then just the fact that, we're filming a photo, we're filming this photo. I mean, I think it kind of hides the bad photoshopping, but I don't know. That's kind of part of the joke. It's just so unlikely.
Yeah.
So I think it's a pretty good visual gag. Um, yeah. So a lot of that.
Yeah, you put a lot of nice touches in the web series, which by the way, the name is Mercredi's Monde. If anyone wants to view any of it, where do they look, Jill?
Well, maybe we can drop a link. It's on Vimeo.
Yeah.
You can find all the episodes on Vimeo. Jetflix Films is the channel on Vimeo, as well as YouTube. I also I made a little like 20-minute little short also. Like I've been playing around with formatting. So because I've gotten a lot of suggestions of people like, why didn't you just go for a short film? I had it in my head because I'm so sketch comedy oriented. Um, and that's just kind of like, where I come from. And so I just had in my head that it would be a web series, but it could have totally worked as a short film too. You just need like, a lot of establishing shots that we didn't get, of exteriors of houses, which, I think I sent you a picture of this really strange black and orange house on Sawtell. It's like, holy shit, that's Mercredi's house.
Yeah.
Walking along, it's like, oh my God, what that's like Dracula's castle in the middle of Japantown.
That's great. Yeah. Thank
Mm.
you for sharing, and I can totally drop a link to Jetflix Films channel. And yeah, I'm just so honored to that you like taught me about this kind of dark mockumentary humor is just so genius. and wonderful um, in what we do in the shadows. What are some of your favorite moments? Are they the dark stuff or like the really ridiculous stuff, or what do you like the most?
God, I mean, so I just rewatched it yesterday and there's just so much to it. I didn't like sit down and take notes on my favorite moments. I guess the ones that jump out at me, like anything to do with Peter.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
goddamn funny.
Yeah.
Oh man, just anything to do with that character is so brilliant. Um, God, what else? The practical effects. Anytime you see them flying, um, it seems like I don't think they had much of a budget for special effects, and just that they're they anytime they're levitating like in their house, that they're clearly, on wires. And just the fact that that's worked into it because they're supposed to be really clumsy guys. Um, I'm trying to think what else. I mean, the performances, there's some of them are just so very understated. The three main guys, they really went to town with their characters. But then the couple of the other ones, especially Nick and Stu,
My gosh.
like those guys are so
Yeah,
so good. Like you just really get the impression those guys aren't acting at all. And oh man,
I agree. Yeah.
oh, so good. Anytime the werewolves start phasing and like they start twitching.
Yeah.
Oh God. Oh man. It's that movie is like Hot Fuzz. It is just so like every moment, it's just every single moment there is. It is just so tight. It's so like jam-packed with like just a gag every 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's rich. And it can easily like pass over your head, right? Because some of it is really like so like normally understated, like dry, that if you don't pay attention, sometimes you'll miss some of it, but it's gold.
Yeah, and somebody will mutter something at the very end, like right before it cuts away, and it's probably an ad lib. It's like none of it was included by accident. None of it was included by accident. It's all like everything is meant to be there.
Yeah.
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 Um,
So good.
God.
And
Yeah.
something just because this is on the Awakening Film and TV podcast, I wanted to kind of pick your brain because you're spiritually open-minded.
Hmm.
About the lore and all of the like ancient stuff with vampires and then vampires in the modern day and age. Um, like, does this film have any morals or anything it's trying to teach as a theme about vampires or about humanity in general? Like, do you have any ideas on that? And if not, that's totally fine.
Um, it's like, yeah, I'd have to kind of talk through that one. I don't know that I have any really formed thoughts on it, but um, vampire lore, I think, came from it's all based in the natural world on wanting to explain the unexplained. I mean, that's what humans do. So, um, anything like I want to say, like maybe, skin retracting over teeth and making it look like somebody has fangs, making it look like somebody's alive. There's always a natural explanation for it, but it's all just the human brain wanting to know what's going on. And so, I mean, any belief system is based on just wanting to explain what's happening naturally. And I don't know on thinking about it right now, like what do vampires have to say about everyday life? I don't know that like these particular guys in this movie, you know, it's like they're just guys. That's the thing, is that they're all just guys. And except for the one feminist. We're all watching each other's dicks, and you know, she's so into her, you know, feminist take on it.
She's great too. Yeah, yeah.
And that's it. But I am your master. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, I put a lot of thought into that, like with Mercredi, and what her take on being dead means. So there is a scene in What We Do in the Shadows. I like that, you know, the character relationships go through some development, because at first, like Deacon and Nick don't get along, but then, you know, Nick is so disturbed by seeing Stu get killed, he thinks, and then Deacon sits down with him. And that's probably his funniest moment, when he's like, Stu would have loved the way he died, having his guts ripped out and his face ripped in shreds, you know, and he talks about, you know, what eternal life means. You get to watch everyone die, and you know, yeah, I don't know. What did you have any take on that? It's I guess it's sort of questioning a finite, an infinite existence versus a finite one.
Right. Yeah, no, you actually answered that unexplained thing like that was a cool answer. Thank you. I loved it. But I think you're
Werewolves, vampires, all that. Yeah, all that lore.
right. It's like that the unexplained, like the fear of the unknown in the human psyche, I believe. And then
Yeah, that is the greatest fear.
it doesn't mean that they're all
A vampire or a werewolf is less scary than the unknown. So
right.
that goes to show you that it's like, you know, death, public speaking, no, it's the unknown. That's the greatest fear.
Right. Yeah. And I think there are like otherworldly beings, but I don't necessarily think it's like the vampires and What We Do in the Shadows that are physical. And you know what I mean? So I think because they're immortal, and that's part of the reason why the feminist that you were just talking about, uh, why she's doing all of this terrible, dirty work is to become immortal. Like that is the draw. Like she doesn't care if she's going to have to drink blood the rest of her life. Like she wants immortality. So
Hmm.
it's a very interesting, like it's a fear of death. So you want to be
Yeah.
immortal. So it's still fear of the unknown, no matter what, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, we don't, because nobody, I think when people fear death, it is the unknown, because nobody can tell you what it's like, um, unless you put any great stock in stories of people who've had near-death experiences, any sort of commonality in those experiences. I mean, yeah, I think there's something to those.
Yeah, they're very varied as well, though, which is interesting.
Hmm.
Different people
Yeah,
have different experiences. So
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I believe in everyday magic. I think, yeah, and what is, there is nothing scarier than nature on one hand, but nothing more magical. I think those are just two sides of the same coin as far as the natural world. And it's like, well, you know, people are right to fear it, in a way. And somehow, humanity has evolved to this place where the fear was so great that it motivated us to separate from nature, and so that we're no longer subject to, you know, the natural laws that other animals are, to, you know, to the life cycle that other animals are.
mm,
That's somewhat, you know, we're kind of like vampires. We live way longer than say we used to, and that's, you know, because we were more susceptible to disease, and if you want to go back further, to predation. Yeah, in a way. So yeah, we're kind of like vampires in that way.
yeah,
Maybe other animals look at us as the vampires.
that's an interesting way to look at it.
Maybe we're the otherworldly beings.
Maybe.
Are we the virus?
I don't know. Maybe we are.
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One yeah, one thing I also wanted to touch about Jill was, yeah, some of the character arcs in this film. And one of the most fun, I think, is Nick's, and how he gets like really egotistical, wanting to tell everyone what he's just became, and then he's like, I'm done. Um, Basically, he's just so funny because it's so typical, right? And so well acted. Uh, did you
Yeah.
did you like that character arc, or like what's your favorite?
Yeah, he's just so interesting. Yeah, I mean, you see him, from the beginning. Um, he's really like the complete character arc that you see. I'm done, and he kind of has to, it was something that was done to him, so he didn't choose to become a vampire. But then he accepts it. So like he goes from I love that part. I'm a vampire. I'm a vampire. Oh yeah, I'm a vampire hunter. Just everything is so casual. Like it's it could be a joke, and it's like, oh, it's real.
Yeah, it makes
I
it.
love that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then he just I don't know what I don't really know what to make of that. That he accepts uh his new condition and he gets on with it. I guess that's a commonality with him and Deacon because that's one of my other favorite moments. Like this creature bit my neck. He's like, "You're a vampire now. You're a vampire," and it was Peter.
yeah,
So there's a commonality between those two characters, and then they end up being friends where they were at odds before.
yeah.
And because Viago and Vladislav, you don't know what their origin was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just kind of like guys who go with it and they make the most of it. They kind of go through something and they say, "Well, I'm going to adapt to it, and this is what I'm going to do now." So,
Yeah, and there's a parallel to like modern day like bachelor dudes living in an apartment together, but they're these like ancient creatures that are lethal. It's just a hilarious premise in general.
hmm
But
hmm
Stu just evens everything out. I just love the Stu character too. So good. And I won't reveal the beast to any listeners, but that's fun as well.
Who would you, if you were going to be one of the What We Do in the Shadows characters, who would you be? Who do you most identify with?
That is an interesting question. I don't know. uh, who do you think I would most relate with? I'm not sure.
I would say Viago, like looks wise. But then I would kind of like to see how you play totally opposite. Like you could be pretty funny as Deacon.
Deacon would be like a fun character to play. Yeah. Oh, but I love Peter. But I mean, I know Peter's not in it much, but Peter would be
You
fun.
could double as somebody else. Like maybe it could be Peter and Stu.
Oh yeah. Stu's fun. What about you? Which character do you feel like a resonance with?
I don't know, between Viago and Deacon. It's just yeah. It's interesting how you kind of something I'm really aware of is people's different essences. It's like it's interesting to I don't know if I want to call it cast against type, but sort of challenge the obvious casting choice
Mm-hmm.
because I think that can be so very interesting.
Oh yeah, I agree.
So very interesting. Like I don't know if I can think of anything mainstream or really current where um, somebody was really like cast against their normal type, or it was just like I don't know, maybe somebody saw something in Chris Pratt where they were like, he could be an action star.
Hmm.
I think that's kind of an example of it. Um, but yeah, that's interesting for me too. But it's just it's something I'm very aware of these days, like based on a person's physical appearance and just their essence. Just like it's a combination of like something about their physical appearance, their voice, and then something that is just kind of it's just their type, it's just their energy. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I like that idea of playing against type, and seeing you as a deacon would be really fun.
You think that would be like the less typical choice?
Perhaps, yeah.
I think I don't, who knows what those character descriptions, or who knows if they even had to write character descriptions, because I have a feeling that they knew, I feel like everybody knew each other and they didn't have to do a whole lot of open casting, and they just, they're like, oh, this is going to be Jemaine and this is going to be um this guy and this guy. So because even the leader of the werewolves, the alpha male, god, that's such a joke too. He's like, I'm the alpha male. Yeah, the guy's clearly not an alpha, but he's from Flight of the Conchords as well.
Right.
So I think it's just a given, like who's going to play what. So I mean, if I was to cast like based on what we saw in the movie, like I would say you'd be Viago, just with like he's always very happy and smiling, and
About love.
yeah.
Yeah.
um so it'd be interesting to see you play like somebody who's just got like this really trash attitude.
Same with you, I think. It'd be fun.
um I mean, I will say I did make an original character for myself who's kind of like Body's Love, Vika the dominatrix, Vika the Ukrainian dominatrix.
Yes, Vika. So this is where we can put a plug in for your other web series, Jill. She also made one called Zen Rage, which is a pretty good feat comedy. Yeah, do you want to talk about it?
Boy, that really rose out of the ground organically, in that it took a lot to bring it to the sunlight. It's an interesting shoot. That was a collaboration with people from an acting class, and we again, it was the mockumentary format, and again, we went with the web series idea. I don't know how that really came about. I mean, again, I think it just was like because we wanted to write something that was like sketch comedy. I think it just seems like it was always a given that it was going to be a series and that we weren't going to try and do a film. So it was just me and a couple of other people from this class were like, yeah, let's just do something. I think it's because probably also because I've always had this dream of being um, I've always thought that being a member of a comedy group, like I don't know. I mean, there are TV shows, like Mad TV, Saturday Night Live, but it's like somebody else writes it and then somebody else performs it. There's probably I mean, it's a lot of give and take. But I mean, has there ever been a comedy group in the sense of a rock group other than Monty Python. I honestly, like, I know there's been other groups. I mean, like other people have had TV shows and they've probably done like live shows. I mean, I'm sure it's happened plenty of times, before then and since then. But when you think of them, it just doesn't happen very often. It's not like a rock group where it's like there's a million of them.
Yeah.
But I just thought, as far as like you're the one who writes it, you're the one who performs it, and you write parts for your friends. And so I think that was kind of like where I was coming from with it. So that was just, it's a given from the start that it's going to be like a TV series, but it's a web series. And so, I mean, I was able to just like scrape enough money together and where I can fairly pay for this thing. And yeah, we shot 30 pages in 2 days. And I mean, that was the attempt. And we came pretty close. We just about got everything. We basically got everything. And I threw up after the last day of shooting.
Oh man.
On the wall. I threw up on the wall. So yeah, that was kind of my first foray, if you will. And then with Mercredi, I mean, it was pretty jam-packed. It was the same kind of shooting schedule, but that was because of budgeting, having to stick to a budget, having to go through SAG rules, having to pay everybody. So it's like, how can we schedule everything in 2 days and get everything? And we did. Those days weren't as long as they had been for Zen Rage, but they were kind of challenging in their own ways because we shot here in my apartment. Oh my God, that's where we were able to put together Mercredi's lair. And it was in August or September, and I'm on the second floor, and where it was 100 degrees in here, and boy,
Sweaty, yeah.
that was something. That was something. So,
well,
was that the first or the second day? That was the first shoot. That was the first, yeah. That was the first one, and then the second one, we had two different locations that were, across town from each other. So, but we got everything.
Yeah.
We did it.
I think you're a talented filmmaker in that way. You're really respectful of every cast member, of the crew. You honor the work, and you can also write and direct and act in the same projects like flawlessly. It's pretty amazing, Jill. I don't know if you know.
Oh, thank you. I don't know about my acting, but I mean, and I really lean heavily on, I was just so fortunate that I had two guys, the two DPs on both projects who wore different hats. Like they were the lighting. I mean, Gil Ben-Harash, who shot Mercredi, man, he was the lighting. He was meticulous in the lighting, beautiful, beautiful lighting, the camera work, the sound. He did it all, and he was just flawless and just an totally unflappable, personality. But so I really was able to find people where I could lean heavily on their expertise. And with Mercredi, I got to be much more behind the camera, where I really wasn't in Zen Rage. I was in practically every shot in Zen Rage. But with Mercredi, I was much more the kind of director I wanted to be. So when, and there's much more communication, I think, with me and Gil. And so he was like, I have an idea for a different lens for this shot, or, and do you want to do this angle here and that? So yeah, better experience with Mercredi, definitely. I mean, I'd learned a little bit more, learned from my mistakes, and And then I edited all of Mercredi myself, and that was just, God, I love editing. It's so fun. That was when I was like, yeah, now I get to edit this thing. So fun, and add sound effects and add music and everything. So
Yeah, you're
yeah.
a great editor too. Yeah, it's fun to watch you work and how excited you get about it. You have a passion for it for sure. Yeah, and I want to do more with Mercredi too. So stay tuned to us, and we'll announce whenever we get something really rolling here. But it's exciting.
I mean, the dream come true would be, I don't know, some amazing deal, and hand it over to a great production company and a director, like that producer that we trust. And um I don't know if I want to, I don't know if I really want to direct the thing. It's like being in charge of a film set, not really my first choice. And
Right.
I mean, I've had some experience, but like really, really small scale experience. So anything bigger than that, I don't know if I would really want to do that. I think I would be happy for my contribution to be writing, maybe being a producer, um, and playing one of the roles in it. So yeah,
Yeah,
playing the TV executive,
exactly. Yeah.
station boss.
Hmm. And like I've reached out to try and get Mercredi picked up for a couple years now. Um, and a couple little nibbles, but no like big bites. And I think it's kind of an amazing feat that going back to what we do in the shadows, that it gained enough traction over the years that they did get a series offer. So it just goes to show you that in this business, it's good to not give up on an idea and just roll with it and believe in it, right?
Hmm.
Eventually something's gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked really in depth into the whole genesis of Taika Waititi's career, the like, because I know he did smaller scale independent films before what we do in the shadows. So it's like, these people didn't just start from nowhere, and they were, I think, fairly somewhat established in their careers at that point. So this wasn't just like, totally grassroots. I think, these people were all somewhat experienced. I think whenever we hear about, oh, this little film from nowhere, I think that's the really kind of the common narrative. Oh, this came from absolutely nowhere, like Halloween.
Hmm.
These people were like just out of film school, and they did something for no money, and it took off. But it's like, Jamie Lee Curtis, she wasn't nobody.
Hmm.
She's Janet Leigh and Tony Curtis's daughter. It's like these people weren't nobody. Yeah, you kind of have to bear that in mind. Um, but yeah, it can be a journey to find funding and just find the right people, and just, allow it to go through a metamorphosis and have many different versions of the same thing, and be open to, different ideas and different formats. So I mean, I'd be open to doing, just revamping it all as a short film, and with a even tighter, vision, and you know
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, maybe having somebody's expert input and saying, this is what I would want to see in a short that could really gain some traction in the festival circuit, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's always, hey, if you got something that you're familiar with and is fun, it's like, if you're not having fun, what's the point? But start with something you love, I think, and just try to like take it as far as you can, and um yeah.
I love
So
Inspiring, Jill. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like to take some ideas that I had with the kind of mock-up scripts that I did for the series Bible that I wrote and try and work more of an arc for Mark, the interviewer, and Mercredi, and have some kind of a climax happen. And we had that with the character of Dan, but he was only introduced in the very last episode. But have that. That's so funny. He's so similar to Nick when I think about it. Definitely some influence there, but
I could see that. Yeah.
like maybe have more of an arc with where Mark is that character. So people have to watch the series to know what I'm talking about. So.
Exactly. Yeah, Mark's a fun one that yeah, I think has some
I
really
think so. I'd really like to see Stefan get into that, get into some emotional complexity with Mark and get past his kind of douchey facade. I think have to explore more of that, more of what kind of ego is driving him, and then see more of the hero come through from that.
and then yeah, Mercredi can be yeah, just an even bigger scale villain and it can grow. There's
Yeah,
options for us. Yeah.
yeah. I gotta say, like Hannibal, the TV series, that was another huge influence for Mercredi. I definitely see her as this Hannibal character because it's like you have these series where there is some shadow hanging over everything, and it's like in Buffy it's the Hellmouth, and I don't know, I can't think of another example like what in The Sopranos it's organized crime, and in Hannibal it's Hannibal, and yet Will is the main character, and then it's all about that relationship. And it's like that you get to see what Hannibal's motivations are and get to see somewhat more into his psyche, and then you see what Will's motivations are, and how those two characters have their interplay and how they both change each other. Another huge influence there, definitely.
That's yeah, I like that's a cool point to see like what's going on behind this villain's head in like a non-campy way, like where it's a real look into what
Yeah, I think the jokes can still be there, but yeah, if you take it seriously, if you take it dead seriously, like this is what her motivations are. Um, but you can still put humor over the top of that.
Mhm.
Definitely. Yeah, that's what makes it a really good character.
Yeah.
And so it's like, no, I really believe I'm doing a good thing. I really believe that I'm doing right by humanity.
And that's the thing, like a lot of villains do think they're doing the righteous thing, like Hitler
Hmm.
believed he was, like
Hmm.
some people actually think so.
But what was underneath that? And so what's underneath Mercredi? What with a character like that, what is underneath it all? That's a really interesting question. And I think there's got to be some amount of ambiguity, because even if you ask a person, any person, well, what is your real motivation with what you did? A lot of people can't, they can only go so far in answering that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is why I did it. Well, why did you really do it? I mean, I get that answer, but it's like, why did you really do it? Well, I guess, I mean, I'm angry about this and that, and You can kind of get to the truth with some people, but then with other people, I think they're so. I don't know if we would reach a point with Mercredi where she would be stumped. Like I think you see that with Hannibal Lecter at some points, where some people will get to a point where they hit a nerve with him. They finally hit a nerve with him, and he doesn't want to answer that question. He
Uh,
doesn't have an answer to that.
yeah.
There's a point where he's not willing to be honest with himself, and that's where you find a limitation. He seems like this limitless character. I mean, he's like Dracula. He seems like a character of limitless power. But then that's a very human characteristic, not being able to answer any question about yourself. Oh, really? There are things about yourself you don't know. Really?
Mm-hmm. I like that.
A little bit of insecurity there. So I would like to see a scene where Mercredi is not able to answer that question.
Yeah.
That would be a really interesting moment. I think that would be a climactic moment.
Yeah, I think so. I like the Mercredi attitude you just donned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we can do with it. And yeah, I am inspired by the kind of feel of the mockumentary where it feels like you could just make this whenever, wherever, when obviously there's a production behind it, but like
Mm-hmm.
going into those deep places and still having humor
Mm-hmm.
and all these layers. It's so genius. I love it. And yeah, I'm excited for what's to come.
Yeah, I guess that's another thing where the mockumentary really allows that to shine, because again, it's if you're showing something shot by a camera crew, it's taking place in the real world. It's definitely taking place in the real world, and there's that I think it does away with the suspension of disbelief in just a regular narrative. Um, yeah, it just puts the viewer in a different position
Yeah,
where you get swept up into the lore of this world. But in a mockumentary, you're removed from it and you're watching the absurdity of it.
exactly. And yet you still are possibly even thinking like, oh, wouldn't that be cool if that was real? Or wouldn't that be creepy if that was like if I just like went down the
Mm-hmm.
street and these guys were filming, like what,
Mm-hmm.
that's a cool thought as well for the audience observing the mockumentary.
Yeah, that's what we do in the shadows does so well. I think with the visual effects that they went with the mixture of practical effects, like what would it really look like if these guys were flying and levitating? Like how silly would that really look if somebody was really levitating or turning into a bat
Right, the bat fight.
or a cat with a human's face, you
Oh my
know?
God, that was so funny. Yeah, yeah. It's too good.
Because it's just like it's something nobody's ever actually seen in real life. So what if it actually happened? Like how ridiculous would it look? So I think I really love that they showed that in the movie.
Yeah, I like that too.
The bat fight, so great.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, there's a lot of funny moments in that film. Yeah, highly recommend. And Mercredi's
Yeah,
Monde and Zen
yeah.
Rage. Do you have anything else that you wanted to share, Jill?
Oh man. I don't know. I mean, throw something out there.
Or you want me to?
What?
You want me to throw something out there, or you have
Yeah,
something? Yeah.
I don't know. It's like I can't really come up with anything else right now.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, maybe I have an idea. Give me a second. I can edit this out. It's fine.
I don't know.
Uh,
it would be interesting if
Oh, I had an idea. I'm sorry. What were
what go ahead, go ahead.
you had an idea
No,
first?
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, I was thinking about the characters and what we do in the shadows and how Peter's the oldest.
Mm,
He's not human like. The rest of them are younger and they have more traits of humans or still try to fit in the human,
hmm.
but Peter is just like
Well, he's 8,000 years old, so
ancient vampire. So it makes you wonder with this like immortality, is there a point where you're just like, I don't care, you know? I'm just gonna show my real raw, like animalistic, brutal self, and I don't care about the society's standards, you know. Interesting thought.
hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't, you have to wonder, like, did they just want to throw Nosferatu in there? Because like it's a different vampire lore. It's a whole different world, you know. Like it's like you have to pick what established rules you're gonna follow from what movie
Right,
or
'cause
book,
the poker instead of Vlad the Impaler,
right?
right? And then they have Nosferatu, which is Peter.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's like, you know, there's no explanation given as to why Nosferatu looks the way he does, and it's just I kind of like that he's just there. You know, he's just oh, it's a Nosferatu joke. I mean, it's
hmm,
I don't know. I wonder um, if they're just gonna say, oh, it's just because he's so much older.
yeah, that's
That's just what happens.
yeah. Okay.
Um, or if there's some kind of comment. I mean, and even he is not um, you know, untouchable because he's the only one to die. And here's our sweet Peter. Um, that's an interesting question, and because I've thought of like, you know, introducing Mercredi's father as a character, and so what would he be like? And it would only have been the span of 30 years. We could say that it's been more like 40 years, but because Mercredi maybe doesn't age as quickly.
Hmm.
But I don't know how much of a difference that would be if her father's a vampire. Um, but it'd be funny if he was less human than Janice remembered him being.
Yeah, I like that idea. Like he's starting to not care as much. Um, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, and this is what was really the story with him and Janice? Like, what was the story of her parting ways?
Hmm. That was
Um,
right that they had together.
yeah, um, that's that college ski trip. Yeah, what caused them to part ways, and does he pine for Janice?
Yeah, it's a good question.
What if he turned Janice and Mercredi was very jealous?
Oh,
Wow, mom, look at you.
that's another way it could go too. Yeah.
Yeah, I,
Oh, sorry, what were you gonna say?
I mean, Janice is she's a, you know, ticking time bomb herself
Yeah.
of frustration.
So who knows, maybe her being turned would be an interesting event for her in her life, something a little like something to really give her like a death and rebirth sort of like a different version of herself. And I like the idea of Mercredi meeting her dad and finding out that he is actually this immortal creature or something like that. And her
Would that kind of knock her off her balance?
She might have like this whole meltdown about who is she and why is she this way. So, uh, yeah, that's an interesting thought. Like,
God, to be this take on, oh God, a Twilight, the girl in Twilight,
yeah,
the daughter,
yeah,
the worst, the absolute worst storyline, just horrible. Um, like this, oh, this take on that. Oh God. Like just think of like the worst jokes people made about that and just like, I think just take those to their absolute degree, you know?
yeah, yeah. And
Ugh.
how in What We Do in the Shadows, Nick is like, the movie Twilight? I'm that guy.
Yeah, I'm him. Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be, oh God, that could be like a terrible, like how would Mercredi say that? Hmm, you know the daughter in Twilight? Well, turns out I'm her. Maybe Mercredi, yeah, maybe she really like she's going through something. Like she learns this and then fast forward a few months and she's just really like she's really going through something. Whoever knew that I could be like a Twilight character.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, darling, I'm not saying your birth was difficult. I don't remember much of it.
Yeah, there's some fun room for play there with her and with Janice too. Yeah. Being like the mother of or just the parent in general of an otherworldly child like that would be a bit freaky. So I don't blame
I
Jen.
mean, and I think I was kind of following the joke of the she's like Damien.
Yeah. Mhm.
Maybe it's not that he's a vampire, maybe he's like a demon. Like he's
Yeah, the
yeah,
anti and yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I think that's actually a better idea. Oh, I thought maybe he has aged and then, Janice has finally put the pieces together. Oh, I thought you were a vampire. I thought you were going to show up and be all young and sexy, but you're not. You're kind of this hairy demon. Oh, you're not what I remember.
That'd be funny.
But yeah, that's more true to I think my core feeling about Mercredi is that she's more like Damien
Gotcha.
or whatever, the Addams family is. And what's the deal with the Addams family? They're just different or they really are some kind, is there something supernatural going on with them? They're not like the monsters.
Ever explained? Yeah, it's different than the Munsters. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, they're the Addams family, they're definitely more ambiguous, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Fun though, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. That talking it out like that definitely has given me more insight with the characters. Like definitely I mean the vampire jokes are funny. Like but I think maybe that's a funny mislead, like, oh, we thought we were playing that he was a vampire. No, it's actually that he's the Antichrist.
Yeah. Interesting yeah, turn of the plot for any viewers. So hopefully we're not ruining it.
And the joke of his mother is like, have you seen The Omen?
Oh yeah, yeah, okay. Yes. I know what you're talking about now.
They have that total Blazing Saddles moment. His mother's
Uh-huh.
and like maybe on Mercredi's, maybe she's got two birth certificates. Like her normal world one is, like father is left blank, and then the one that the dad has, like mother is left blank. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those are like the main like ideas I had in my head to talk about. Is there anything that you wanted to share, Jill?
I don't know. I mean, it's just like, what do you think it is about the mockumentary format? It's I don't know, you say The Office is kind of that. Would you say that The Office is like a mockumentary series?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. There's just something about that. It's like it's kind of like reality is stranger than fiction. I think maybe that's what it's underlining, is that you're supposedly following real people,
I like that.
but they're, you just see this microcosm of just absolutely bizarre characters and interplays in all of the series that Christopher Guest, the films that Christopher Guest and Michael McKean have done, like Best in Show, Mighty Wind, and of course Spinal Tap. Um, there's a really good, oh my God, I've seen this movie so many times. There's a movie called Hardcore Logo from Canada. I think it's like it's a really famous movie in Canada. Um, they're self-aware of this, but it's kind of like the Canadian Spinal Tap, and it's definitely funny, but it's a mockumentary of a band, but the humor just comes naturally, but it's not an inherently funny premise, but it's so good. I've seen it so many times. But yeah, there is just something about what we do in the shadows, is something about that mockumentary format. It's just like invent this, you know, batshit character and just kind of see where it goes. It's just kind of like, I think it's just the perfect format. It's just like invent a character, some circumstances, and just kind of like let it go. And you construct a plot, but I think it's sort of like what made Buffy really funny, was that you're taking all these supernatural beings and really highlighting their interplay with the modern world.
Yeah,
I think there's that element too
totally.
that's really funny, like demons texting and,
The normal everyday things with these like creepy creatures of the dark, like, oh, we need to have a flat meeting, or um,
Mhm.
you need to do the dishes.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of like the mundane, the social constraints that we live under, these agreements that we've grown up with, of this is how civilized society works and how dead it is, if you will, how just kind of like it sucks the life out of everyday life. But then it's like, and then having the supernatural, which is volatile, dangerous, magical, alive, and seeing how it handles the yoke of the modern world, and how, yeah, I that's something I think about a lot. It's like we savor these moments where we feel alive, because we just don't feel alive most of the time. A lot of us, going to a job, and you, you just having to make a living, just having to stay alive, making a paycheck, making your insurance. There's nothing life affirming about that. You will be a zombie. You will feel dead if you don't watch out. So that's probably, I think that juxtaposition is what makes those things work. It's like this big punch in the face to somebody who's just like stuck in a rut. Um, like, wow, the magical is real.
Yeah. Well said, Joe. I love that.
Kind of freestyling that, but I think that really is that where that fun interplay happens. So yeah, that's what makes filmmaking worthwhile.
Yeah. And also, I like that taking like a creepy subject like a den of vampires and just making it fun. Like putting the humor in these dark situations. Maybe that'll help people to not be so scared of the unknown, on a subconscious level, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we live in a culture, our world is just steeped in fear. It's just so crazy, the world is the internet has made the world kind of smaller, and yet it's shown like there are some scary people out there. And we've always known that. It's like for a lot of us, the world is a big scary place, when that kind of gets put in place in childhood and we never really grow out of it. And, it's like I know I have a fear response to most things. And that's a good point, it's like we made up these constructs, vampires, werewolves, ghosts, like we made a decision that these things were dangerous, so to kind of defang them. Yeah, it's really interesting. Let's carry on with the Mercredi cult idea. Let's make cults less scary. Let's make them fun.
Because Mercredi, I mean, she tries to make him seem less scary, but really it's some shady
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, she makes him seem appealing, I think, in her own way. She's so fun. It's such a fun character. Yeah.
That Mercredi. Yeah, I mean, I feel like she's a cross between Alice in Wonderland and Hannibal Lecter. And that's the edge I want to walk with her. It's like there's always plausible deniability with her. You never really know.
Yeah.
What's she up to?
Her brain's always
She trying to kill you or no?
Yeah.
You don't know. You don't know.
Yeah. Love it.
Do you want to be her friend? Maybe not. I want to. It just seems so big and daunting, but yeah, I mean, I would like to, keep trying to do the grassroots campaign and, keep that character alive and keep that story alive and hopefully keep doing bigger and better things. So I think it's a noble cause. I think some of the ideas we talked about, the apathy angle and the being less afraid of the unknown angle, definitely worth talking about in today's climate.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's relevant. Yeah.
The arts are worthwhile and they're worth putting time and money into, definitely. These stories are worth telling.
Thank you so much for doing this.
That was fun.
You're awesome.
It gave me some genuine insight into Mercredi, so definitely it was useful for me too. Yeah.
I'm glad. Thank you. And if you're interested, be sure to check out Jill's hilarious and inspiring web series in the links below. Thank you.